on this computer. Okay, there. I hit record this time.
All right, you did it right this time.
And now go live.
To go back in time. Got this here.
All right, setting it up.
Oh, look, we're live.
There we are. We're live.
Those pain in the ass people are live again.
I need to turn my volume down on my phone.
That's the problem I have all the time is my volume stays up on the phone. And so I hear myself like an echo weird thing. Maybe I'm gonna like it this time.
Like a.
So we should only get one like on it.
Hi, Liza.
Oh, wow. See, I don't see anybody signing on. Anyway, that's okay.
Hi, Gabe, and some fucker named Darren Weeks is watching.
Yeah, he's a real fucking dick, that one. Yeah, we're a little late because Mary had a canine situation in her next door neighbor's yard wouldn't stop barking, so we decided to wait until whatever she did to that poor dog kicked in. So now we're here. It was like, rah, 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 rah.
And I love dogs.
Really bad.
I love dogs. I would love to own a dog someday, but this dog
is that why all those descriptions you had about that dog? Is that a loving dog that you said? All those words you were using a few minutes ago.
Okay, it's actually not the dog's fault that he's that way. It's the way he's been raised.
I would agree with that.
Because like I know some dogs, like my aunt and uncle's dogs, Kiara and Savannah, the golden retrievers are fucking awesome. You know.
Your aunts, bug things.
Oh God. Is this the aunt thing or whatever?
We talked about it. It's
aunt. I'm apparently supposed to say aunt.
That's the way it's said. So that's exactly how you should say it. So
well,
you should
in
learn.
Canada, we say aunt.
Oh, in Canada, please, Canada. How many times you've gotten away with that "cause in Canada" thing?
Because in Canada. Hi, Roger. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, gang.
Afternoon, Ryan. Afternoon, I'll make America Great Britain again, etc.
Yeah, fly that flag, right? Can't go wrong with England. You know, my heritage: Beatles, Spice Girls, Bangers and Mash, all that stuff.
Part of my heritage too, although I'm more Irish than I am British.
I'm mostly English. I'm like 80% British, little bit Irish. You know, stuff like that. So. See, it rhymes with haunt. See, Mike Jenkins has got it right. See, you can learn something here too, Mayor. If you actually pay attention once in a while, you can learn something except how this thing goes.
Really?
Call me what you want. You sure it's fucker, not like thicker?
Colonel von Schimmelfucker III.
It was good to see him last week in the live. It was good he
that was fun.
You know,
Ryan is drinking traditional English ale from Hog's Back Brewery in Surrey. Nice.
Oh, nice.
I'm actually having a fruit sour IPA called Raspberry Moon, which is from a local brewery here called Cowbell.
And since it is morning, I'm drinking the Dunkin's.
Right, we're both trying to legitimize our morning beers right now.
Yeah,
me by pretending I'm drinking juice, and you by pretending you're drinking coffee.
But I did bring a koozie to class it up, though.
But in England, it's the afternoon, so that makes it legit.
You know what, though? It's like 60 degrees here. It's a beautiful day here in the People's Republic of Cape Cod. And it's a beautiful, beautiful afternoon in November. So I'm going to sit out here in the morning and drink some beer. So, yeah, it's nice for everybody to sign on. Morning, Allie. Roger Souza checking in, the pride of Zanesville, Ohio.
Yeah.
That's what he is now.
Columbus Brew Company, Citra Noel. Nice.
Yeah.
Liza's having a gin and tonic.
Ooh, Liza wins.
Nice.
You know, if you get rid of that tonic, you'll just have gin. That's a fact. You know? So anyway, Mary, how was your weekend going?
It's going pretty good.
Freaking run, turn, and run. But
how's yours going?
Oh, it's going great. It's going absolutely fantastic. What a day. This has been one long Friday for me. So it's just
it's been a long Friday for me too.
It has been. It was quite an action-packed night last night.
I mean, I finished editing earlier than I expected, which was nice. It was a very easy episode to edit, or it could just be I'm getting better at the editing. I don't know.
It's probably not that.
I know it's probably. Why would I improve on something? Right?
It is. It is. I mean, once you hit peak level, then you got it.
Yeah.
We can't go any more than that. I mean, that's rare. Jay Price is signing on. She's our ghost guest from last week. Hey, Jen,
Price.
how are you? Hope everybody's survived the week well. I don't know if anything newsworthy happened this week. I haven't been paying attention.
I don't think so.
No. I think it was a pretty straightforward week. nothing going on. You know, God,
Nothing at all. Nothing.
nothing going on. So,
Nothing.
do you have fun listening to our podcast? Do you like this one?
I did. I loved it. It was a really good one to edit. I got to try some new stuff with the editing that I had never done before, and I'm happy to say it was successful. And I really enjoyed the discussion we had about it. It was a battle that, like Ball's Bluff, was what we discussed, and I did not know much about it going into it.
Mhm.
But when I started reading about it, I was like, wow, this is a really important battle. And someone on Twitter commented that it was their favorite battle, the battle they had studied the most, which was surprising. But then they also said that it's not one that a lot of people who look at the Civil War will look at, because it was a smaller battle. It was early in the Civil War, and
Mhm.
it didn't result in a lot of casualties, not like something like Shiloh, Chickamauga, or Gettysburg.
Right.
But the far-reaching political effects it had are what make it an important battle to look at.
That is true. So, anyway, Jen's gonna go for her run. What is she? Jen? What are you running from? You're always running. She's on the lam. I think that's what it is.
She is. She's going to run up here to Canada and stay with me.
That's why she changed the color of her hair, because it's being incognito. Probably. That's exactly what it was. Hey, Jim. Morning.
Hi, Jim.
Allie and Laura. So Roger's missing moving to Canada. I still may move to Canada. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, Laura.
But no, but yeah. So, but I think to your point though, it's what's fun about Ball's Bluff is it's just it's a fun battle because there's a lot of people in the early stages of the war.
Yep.
You got the McClellan, you got the Johnston, but you got a lot of these guys. And I like it, Mary, because it's got a lot of Massachusetts guys in it.
Mm-hmm, it does.
Which I'm surprised they lost, because they had Massachusetts guys in it.
Right?
We can beat the British, but we can't beat the Virginians, apparently. But that's okay. Sorry about that, Ryan. Don't bring up bad. I don't know if it's too soon or not.
Hashtag too soon. Yeah, no, it was. But the other thing too, like you mentioned, that it does have a lot of these people in it that are going to be key players later on, like McClellan. Beauregard is involved too. But it's also got a couple men that maybe, like specifically Charles Stone. His career in the Civil War is ruined because of this. You know,
Yeah, and Ryan, thanks for the good words on the podcast. Glad you liked it. It was a fun one to do, but but I think the Charles Stone thing is interesting because you're really seeing the beginning of the blame game take full effect, right? So we talked about Ed Baker. If he doesn't get killed, he's going to get blamed, and I would like to see what would have happened being Lincoln's boy. Yeah, how they would have blamed him.
I think
but Stone getting arrested the way he did.
Yeah.
But you know what though? A couple of weeks ago, I don't want to say praise McClellan, but we kind of maybe exonerated some of the stories. You got to kind of blame him for this one. And the biggest one you have to is the fact that he gave these people complete discretion, and he shouldn't have. These guys, having Philbrook from Company H lead that expedition and go over there the first time. This is a guy who hasn't never seen a battle.
They have no training. It's a reconnaissance mission, and I think they just didn't, like, they were probably excited, like, oh my God, like it could be the rebels. Let's go back and tell them that, because it's something, like you're seeing something that's not there.
Well, they were excited. He was excited. He wanted to be the guy who saw something. It was almost like maybe J. Johnson Pettigrew at Gettysburg on July 1st, maybe similar, but Pettigrew had a lot more experience. But what's interesting about that, though, on the Confederate side, is when Pettigrew goes back and tells Heath goes, "You're new. You don't know what you're talking about. It's just militia. You're out of your mind." But then they still kind of follow through. They believe Philbrook completely. They said, Devens is like, you go over there, now you're going to take a raiding party. You're going to take some dudes from the 15th Mass, and you're going to go over there and see what's up. Take the guys from the Harvard Regiment. You're going to head over there. And then the communication's always a mess. It's so funny how many times the phrase pontoon boats come up in the first half of this war.
And it's never a good thing when it does.
I mean, the fact that Baker is literally running up and down the beach like David Hasselhoff, running slow motion probably.
He's got his little...
he's got his little board running half speed with Pam Anderson, and the hair's blowing slow motion. But they're running around looking for boats. I mean, I don't know what the hell he's expecting to find boats. I mean, you're going to find maybe like a little dinghy or something. What do you think? The
I
the Love
know.
Boat's going to be hanging around there. The
Yeah.
Love Boat we could have used instead of the Bang Barn. You didn't think about it.
I like the Ball Barn. The Ball
The
Barn was
Ball
great.
Barn. The Ball Barn.
The Ball Barn is the waiting room of the Bang Barn.
It is. It is.
Ryan's got a comment on here. Love the appearance of Stone and Shanks. Their life stories are amazingly interesting. I definitely agree with that. And for a small battle, it did have a profound effect because it was an early battle within spitting distance of Washington involving people well known at the highest political circles. Great pod. Thank you, Ryan.
Very kind.
He also
Appreciate
says, "Hey, I'm Irish, so they're always on both sides." That's true.
See, Ryan, I'm Irish and British, and that's why I always tell people why I hate myself. That's a bad.
Hey, Amelia.
Tip your waitresses. Thanks for coming by. Have a nice night. I'll show myself out.
And I was paying attention. I heard that. I just choose to ignore it.
It is amazing because we go back and we'll rewatch these lives from time to time. How much you miss. How
because
much
I'm
you are
trying
oblivious.
To pay attention to the comments, genius. By the way, isn't it pronounced Heth and not Heath?
That was so funny. So anyway, Darren, so the other day we would read about Heth, and then Kearney comes by. He wants to talk about Meagher and the Irish Brigade. And then he brings his aunt. That is pretty
Massachusetts.
Funny. But the I got to tweet that when we had the Massachusetts training that one last spring. I have a video of Mary where I'm teaching her how to say Massachusetts. I'm going to tweet that. It is hilarious. And she still can't get it. If what was that, April?
Yeah,
it was way back in the day.
I've never been able to say it.
But you know what though, in your defense, it looks like Heth, right? It does.
Well, it does. I'm just pronouncing it phonetically.
It looks like Meagher. It looks like Kearney, right?
Thank you for defending me, but then also giving me shit.
Oh, I'm not defending you. Let's not mistake this. let's whoa. Let's not go up deep in here. I'm not defending you at all.
Let's not go that far.
What I'm saying is I understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Amelia, our favorite patent attorney.
Yeah.
But
Alex says the curious case of disappearing pontoon boats. Sounds like a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, Charles Stone, the disappearing pontoon. Boy, Cinemax would have fun with that title. If they really wanted to.
Yeah, good.
Speaking of the Bang Barn, But I think what's interesting about the battle is again, it goes back to communication. And again, they didn't have real good communication. There really wasn't any really hint of any real Union cavalry, which is kind of a surprise,
mm-hmm.
right?
Well, it was such a small force, right? It starts off with just the reconnaissance or it's Baker who's only got, not Baker, I'm sorry, Devens only has 300 mm-hmm. men.
But what I'm saying was, you know what, when they go up to Sugarloaf Mountain, which I'm mm-hmm. convinced every state has a Sugarloaf Mountain in it, by the way, they all do. What
sounds like a sweet place.
No, it definitely does. Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, wow. Thanks. Hey. So
tip your waitresses.
Wow, look at this. I didn't realize Don Rickles was here tonight. But they go down to Drainesville, Virginia, and they go up to Sugarloaf Mountain.
Yep.
And the flag guys, they see that they maybe have, pulled out from Leesburg. And my first question was, I realized that you had to get over the river, but how do you not get cavalry over there somehow? Even a couple of guys, and instead of sending a bunch of guys over, I've got a bunch of green soldiers across the river from Harrison's Island. And I have to think it has to do with the pontoon boats. I mean, they could put a horse on a boat maybe, but
and they're still
I don't know.
bumbling around at this point. It's like to the thing you said about McClellan just basically being like, okay guys, go play, and not giving them any kind of direction. And then after the battle, he comes back and he writes his wife and said, I had zero to do with this shit. It was all on these fuckers. Fuck them. And he and Stone blame Baker, which rightly so. Baker.
Well, everybody blamed everybody. Baker gets blamed, Stone gets blamed, McClellan gets blamed. They all do.
Yeah, and I think to your point about what would have happened to Baker, or had he lived, I don't think anything. He would have been protected by Lincoln. He would have been protected by Charles Sumner, because Charles Sumner was the one leading the parade against Stone.
Another Massachusetts guy. Well, he was also an abolitionist. Sumner
exactly.
was.
Yep.
And the other guys weren't. I mean, it's going to be tough for Stone. He is not an abolitionist. He has the 15th and 20th mass, both in the Boston area, especially the 20th, which is from Cambridge, which is
Is that
still
the Harvard? Is that the Harvard?
That's the Harvard Regiment. So you have Paul Revere, the grandson of that. And you got a lot of different guys with that. But again, Stone was from Greenfield, Mass, which is Western Mass. If you know, it's
near the Vermont border. Proof I fucking pay attention.
It's a half an hour from Treehouse Brewery. If you everything, that's how I look at it. But it's on right on the Vermont border. It's way out. It's not far from where our friend Bill grew up, by the way, in the Berkshires. But it's a little different out there. It's basically Eastern New York when you get out there.
Yeah.
And people out there, the city, Boston is not the most populous city when you get way out there anyway. It's just people are different. But anyway, it ends up a situation where he's put in a tough spot because he doesn't have much experience, and so what could you do? Baker's Baker's born in England. Speaking of England, so he doesn't have any West Point experience. Nope. Stone's Harvard, right? So
which is like way down the totem pole from Boston College, right?
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but yeah. I mean, that's what
I'm a Boston College fan now, so.
See, people go to Harvard when you can't get into BC, and that's cool. I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
Harvard's some pretentious dicks anyway.
Gabe said that Sugarloaf Mountain is next.
I will say this, though, they're a good. When I was in college, we went to Harvard. They had the best parties at Harvard.
Nice.
Good.
Nice. I should have gone to school in the U.S. I'm realizing that now.
Yeah,
I went to U of T. Gabe said Sugarloaf Mountain. It's next to Big Rock Candy Mountain. I have a feeling there's going to be a meme to do with this now.
That's right to the Chocolate Nougat River, isn't it?
Yeah. Isn't that kind of like you get to Kokomo by turning left at Funky Town or something like that?
What the hell did you just do?
You've never heard that?
God, no.
You know the song Kokomo by the Beach Boys?
Oh, I thought you were having a stroke or something. I don't know what was going on.
Ryan said Baker would have got to tell his story and apportion his blame at the highest level. Yeah, he would have. And he probably would have been heard more than anybody else. But really, when you think about this battle, it's like that Spider-Man meme where there's like 3 Spider-Mans and they're all pointing at each other. That's exactly like you would have McClellan.
I still think though,
Stone,
I still think Baker loses his command though. I think he gets set in office somewhere. He gets desk jockey.
Probably,
I bet you he does. Because Lincoln's like, listen, you're not going to get court-martialed, you're not going to go to prison, but you can't go out there in the field anymore because you know what the hell you're doing.
Oh yeah,
half of them didn't know what they were doing.
No, they were bumbling around like, whatever at that point. Like it's all new to them. They're green, as you said. And
well, they like to get there fast and take it slow, just like Kokomo. See, I have heard of that song.
No, you have. That's like the other night. That was almost like the other night when you made me laugh before we did the podcast, where I felt like beer was going to come out my nose, which is the most unpleasant feeling in the world.
Again, you haven't stepped on a Lego. We talked about this, but okay. Well, why?
I've stepped on a Lego.
I forget what we said to make you laugh. You did laugh at something. I forget what it was.
I can't remember what it was. I just know I felt the beer go like, and it was like the most.
Not a good feeling.
No. I think on the scale of like 1 to 10, with 10 being step on a Lego, it was about an 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Big Rock Candy Mountain. That's a good one from Gabe. We
mentioned that already.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just reiterating. Okay, it goes back. You also do Big Black Licorice, going back to Kennesaw, to Vicksburg, right?
Yes.
We could do a whole episode on candy.
We could. Well,
not to mention Brigadier General Candy from the Battle of Gettysburg at Culp's Hill. And you know what the other guy's name was? Kane. You had Candy and Kane. Candy Kane. You did. And you had greens. You had green Candy Cane. It was like a Christmas spectacular on Culp's Hill.
Look at you go.
This is why you pay the big bucks for this podcast, Mary. This is the only stuff you get here. You don't get this stuff on the Battle of Gettysburg podcast. Hey.
I was just going to say, American Battlefield Trust tweeted earlier this week about candy in the Civil War.
Oh, really?
You retweeted it. You said something about it coming from New England or whatever.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember. I think I remember anything. Crazy.
Getting old sucks, doesn't it?
Seriously. Stupid Canada. You know what? But it was it was
I'm not going to be your
actually.
emotional support Canadian anymore.
You know what? Okay, fine.
I'll be
Well, I don't.
Pike's
You know
emotional
what?
support Canadian.
I don't need one anymore. Okay, so fine. Because now I know where all the good New England candy comes from, and that's what that tweet was about. By the way, it was about candy was made in
Right.
New England for the Civil War guys. You know, American
Roger said
Battlefield
that.
Trust is awesome.
Oh, they are. Yeah. Roger said that's almost happened to Darren Bill telling the Buffalo story.
Buffalo story. Roger, we have like 1,000 Buffalo stories. Which Buffalo story? Remember, this is a family show. And you want to talk about Buffalo story? Okay, all right, fine. But I wasn't gonna say, but no, but I think it goes back to the fact that I don't think Baker would have I don't think he would have. I think he would have got off, but I think he would have lost his command.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
But they were all
but he would have been protected. That like more should have happened to him, but he would have been protected.
I think you obviously Stone, and I never understood the fact why whenever these battles happened, they always had to find someone to blame. Sometimes they didn't realize that the shit happens theory must not have existed.
Oh yeah, and that they're
1861.
not the ones playing the blame game are sitting back in Washington, not realizing in real time what somebody like say Meade at Gettysburg is going through. So Meade's going off, no sleep, and he finally decides on July the 4th. He's just like, "Fuck, my men need to rest." Hancock's wounded, Gibbon's wounded, Reynolds is dead, Sickles is wounded. The army needs to rest, and they just don't get that in Washington. And it happens at other battles too, like in Antietam. We talked about it with McClellan, right? Like just not understanding what the army's going through. I think that factors into it. But too, like I think they probably saw it as like, okay, we got to be accountable. We can't just say shit happens. We got to find someone to blame. And that has to do with the media. It has to do with the citizens of the North as well and the South. So you got to blame somebody.
Well, I think it was how could this mighty army of the North, the Army of the Potomac, one of 16 armies operating the American Civil War, versus how many Confederates? Remember?
22.
22. Good job. You're listening.
See, I pay attention.
Anyways, yeah. Okay, we'll get that out of the way now. But I think people were surprised at how much like the Union would have struggled. And I think guys like Sherman understood.
Yep.
Guys like Grant understood.
Yep.
I think McClellan understood. I think
absolutely.
Lincoln didn't. I think Halleck certainly didn't. Fucking Stanton certainly didn't.
But that's
also freaking sure.
Like Halleck and Stanton they made things personal, much like Michael Corleone did, which is why I don't like Michael Corleone. I'm Team Sonny.
You mentioned that way more than you should. That's more than the average. I don't think Sonny Corleone himself says that phrase more than you do. You have a tough time going through those toll booths, don't you?
I think of Sonny every single time.
Every single time, don't you? Mike's right. The Confederates had something to do with it. No, he absolutely did. He absolutely did. And you can't underestimate fighting on your own land for whatever for whatever you feel like you're fighting for. And there's no doubt about it. But I think the one thing Shelby Foote said that he was right about was they fought that war the Union did with one arm tied behind their back.
They did, yeah.
They did. And I think they thought it would be an easy war, let the South down slow, don't destroy the economy down there, just beat them, and they didn't realize till it was too late that wasn't the way it was going to be. They had to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you saw that. I think people focus too much on the generals, where they really should be focusing on the 4 phases of the Civil War, which is all 4 years, 61, 62, 63, 64, and then a little 65. Because it's really, you go from the beginning, which is a complete mess. The Confederates had blue uniforms. They had to tie white arms around their bands around their arms to tell that it's like capture the freaking flag. Then it gets more and more into it. Then you got the drafts kicking in.
Yeah. And
then once you get into the second half of the war, when you're really in deep to it, when you realize how hard it's actually going to be, it kind of turns into that guerrilla warfare thing.
Yeah.
You see the beginning of really street fighting.
Yeah.
You see Fredericksburg, Gettysburg, places like that, where they're using the cities as stops to slow down opposing armies. And you start to see that in later wars like World War I, World War II, and that in the American Civil War in this country obviously is the first time you really see that.
Yeah, you see trench warfare too for the first time
Mhm.
as well. It starts at, a lot of people say it was like, you know, in the like Petersburg, whatever, but it actually starts at Chickamauga. That's where they started doing the
You
trench
know,
thing.
and I said this before, and I don't know if I said it on this thing or I just said it to you offline, but I was having lunch with one of my Ranger friends down in Gettysburg last summer, and we were
Mhm.
talking about the Civil War. Obviously, what else are we gonna freaking talk about? But we were talking about just stuff, and I brought up a point. I go, you know, because he was saying like, you know, the war, you know, it had to happen, but you know, it shouldn't have happened, but it was going to happen. And I told him, I go, can you imagine if this stalled for another 30, 40 years, and you had the Civil War happen in the early 1900s with that weaponry, with chemical weapons, mustard gas,
Oh
machine
God.
guns, planes, all that shit. I mean, can you imagine how that would have been? Now, I did see a picture of Sherman with the UFO in a plane, so they
Oh,
might have
me
had
too.
those. So
I,
who
I,
knows?
I
But
just thought of Sherman and the Sherman tank. Could you imagine him rolling through Georgia in one of those? Like
they'd be
just,
playing, they'd be
he'd be
playing that
like,
"Marching Through Georgia" song. They'd be
he,
playing that song as they were going. You know,
he
be like
would
the,
be, he'd be
do,
like,
do
hey
you think
fuckers.
do you think like the people in Georgia, they heard Marching Through Georgia and they knew the army was coming the same way that people in Jaws heard the Jaws song the shark was coming?
That's exactly what it would have been.
They
Which
that's
is
how
funny
it would.
because the march is like a land shark, and that's actually what O'Donnell says about it in Fierce Patriot, which is the hands down the best Sherman biography out there, one of the
Mhm.
best biographies I've ever read. But he refers to the march as being this gigantic land shark just moving through Georgia. But yeah, that would
Mhm.
be, yeah, that you would start to hear it really quiet, like in
Yeah,
Jaws, and then it just picks up, and the people are like, "Oh my god,
they'd hear like that. They hear that fiddle kick in real hard. They know, oh fuck, they're here. Like
damn it!"
you hear the slow build up. You
Yeah,
know and then all of a sudden, it really kicks hard. That's when
yeah.
like Sherman would show up. You know, they'd all be there. So, but yeah, Treasures of Vicksburg, Lennon, you're absolutely right. And Vicksburg was like 10 battles in one too, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, and so
I mean,
was Chickamauga was that way
mhm.
as well. Like there's so many like Chickamauga, well Vicksburg because of how long it took, but
Well,
Chickamauga because of the piecemeal aspect of it, right?
well, Vicksburg, you had obviously the issue with the river.
Yeah,
You had Big Black, you had Champion Hill, you had
Chickasaw.
Chickasaw, you had Deer Creek, you had all those
Mhm.
Jackson, Mississippi. You had so many
Yep.
all in one with that. And then that final siege where basically Grant and Sherman are like going hitting these trenches, you know,
Yep.
straight up, and guys like McClernand are basically lying about, you know, about the forces they're seeing because
Yeah.
it's that whole thing was a mess. But I still think Vicksburg, for
Yeah.
dollar, pound for pound, is the best military campaign in American history by far.
Oh yeah,
By far.
once they got their shit together, and yeah, I gotta like, yeah, Leonard, you're absolutely right about the trenches there too. But that part where they moved the flotilla down the Mississippi, like that, just I get chills whenever I read that because just to imagine that. And then that's I think when oh God, what's his name? Fuck, the Confederate commander. I can't remember it. Pemberton.
Pemberton.
Pemberton. He's probably like, we're fucked. We are officially fucked.
Well, that was in his memoirs. He says,
We're
"Dear
officially
sir,
fucked.
we're fucked, sir."
We're fucked.
You know.
Ryan said British generals throughout history learn from the start of every war when they get their arse handed to them. You don't learn much if you fire all the guys who are learning the hard lessons. Um,
But you don't got
Ali
to look.
said,
I was gonna say you don't have to look any more further than Winston Churchill for that.
mm-hmm,
You know, I mean,
yeah,
he was run on a rail, you know, at the beginning, and then he came back later on. They thought he was crazy, and World War II he redeemed himself, but
yeah.
his World War One days before that, it's a lot of stuff is like that.
Yeah, Ali said it's like Monday morning quarterbacking. You got people in the government freaking out, newspaper people freaking out. Finger pointing will always be the name of the game. Absolutely. And it's more prominent in the Eastern theater because that's where the media is, right? Like it's closer to New York. The media are more involved than they are in the Western theater. So the Western theater gets a little bit like they don't get covered as much. Plus, the news takes longer to reach, right? So,
Well, it's the same reason that the Red Sox and the Yankees get all the press, and the Angels and the Mariners don't, because they're way the hell in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're close to your point. You're close to the media centers.
yeah,
Although they did have traveling armies. Sherman has those great quotes about, if the media all died, we get reports from hell by breakfast the
exactly.
next
Yeah,
day.
like he just hated the media, but that too goes back to what happened to him on I think the winter of 1862 when he had a period where he just kind of went like I mean, he obviously suffered from depression and anxiety. It just got really, really bad. And he was thinking things and being paranoid about stuff that wasn't really there. And the media picked up on that and they ran with it and they called him crazy. And he had to leave the army for a period of time. And it was actually his wife and his brother that they both went to talk to President Lincoln about it and say, look, you please put him back in the army. And Lincoln had already made the decision he was going to, because he knew Sherman was it was just kind of a bump in the road for him. But he hated the media so much after that.
Well, in the media, I mean, been hearing a lot about the media lately. Well,
yeah,
both good and bad.
Fucking dog too.
Oh, your dog, he's not as loud as he was before we started. You should, for the people watching this right now, you should have seen her face when this dog was going before we get started.
Because it's rude.
But
it's not
but
his fault. It's
but
her.
You had that John Wayne Gacy look in your eye, Mary. It was scary.
I would not hurt the dog. Okay, I would like to take the dog and train it to behave.
You were like your right eye was like twitching. You were angry. You were mad. Oh God, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if there's no shame in it. The dog, it felt like it was right in your deck there. I don't give a shit.
It sometimes sounds like he is. Ryan said a number of experienced Northern officers and Mexican War veterans refused to fight in the Civil War against the South. During the Trent Affair, a number also hint they would return to the colors, but only with a guarantee they would only fight the British. Leonard, John Clifford Pemberton. Yep. Not to be confused with John Stith Pemberton, the Coke guy.
We talked about him last time. One of these times we did.
Jim Pronunciation Police. McClernand? You mean McClernand. EER versus ER.
Yeah, it's good like that. Gabe mentions Grierson.
Oh, karma.
Right. He mentions Grierson. Grierson's cavalry. It doesn't. I mean, if you read Groom's book on Vicksburg, he kind of glosses upon Grierson's cavalry, but you can't say enough about what Grierson did in that cavalry.
Are you pronouncing it properly?
Grierson. I think it's Grierson. That's all. Yeah, Grierson, right?
I don't know.
That's he's got to change things. That's how I'm calling it.
I like that Jim brought karma for me. Hi, Amy.
Yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, I was trying to keep it serious here, Fincher. But Grierson's cavalry does not get enough credit. He really doesn't. He what they did was amazing.
Leonard Grierson.
Well, I'll go by Grierson. I knew someone in Grierson in school. Yeah,
karma again. It's so wonderful.
Well, that's going to be enough for today. I go by Grierson. But I say in Gettysburg, I say McPherson, which is the correct pronunciation. Everybody says McPherson.
It's McPherson.
It's McPherson. You know what?
I knew a guy with the last name of McPherson, and he happens to be related to the Civil War general. Well, and he pronounced it McPherson. So is he pronouncing his own name wrong?
Well, you're going to have to tell him to change that because he's wrong. Because I talked to a descendant from the McPhersons at Gettysburg, and it's Scottish, not Irish.
Yes.
And he told me, he goes, the easiest way to remember this, he goes, there is no fear in McPherson. That's what he used to say. So it's McPherson. That's how they pronounce it in Gettysburg. So
I hope the ghost of McPherson comes to haunt you.
Well, Jimmy crack corn, Mary, because I don't have to worry about that. But the people in Gettysburg say McPherson, so it's McPherson. So if you want to go the name game thing.
Ryan says Greer as in rear, and Leonard Edbear said Grierson, and he's never wrong, LOL.
No one can understand what Beers said anyway. Every word was 14 syllables, no matter what Beers said. So,
I got so much amusement out of watching him when that thing came out when I was 9. That was awesome.
Beers was so good though. He was.
Yeah, he was. It's sad that he passed away.
The fact that he found the Cairo in the, I mean, you think about it, it'd be like if Gary Edelman or someone like that found some relic. It's just so cool. Yep. I mean, he's a rare situation where he's a historian who actually was part of history, And he lived to be 90 something, right? I know he just died a few weeks ago. He
was old. Gabe said the USS Cairo is at Vicksburg as well. I grew up 45 minutes from Cairo, Illinois. Leonard Cairo. I was just gonna say Cairo. Oh my God, karma.
I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. It's Cairo.
It's Cairo. It's actually pronounced differently than Cairo, Egypt. It's pronounced Cairo.
Well, then that's not the way Beer said it, but that's okay. If apparently the Beers metric is a real thing.
Yeah, Eliza said Ed Beers, R.I.P. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was a good dude. You know, the Beers metric. You know, that's everything should be measured by him now.
Karma's fun.
You know what?
You giving me shit all week for the way I pronounce stuff?
Well, I'm going on no sleep. Okay.
Eventually, I'll pronounce Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, you'll get right on that.
I will.
We had a very in-depth training. You still couldn't get it.
Gabe, it's Caro like the syrup. I get the feeling there's going to be many memes from this Facebook Live.
Oh, probably. But it is cool he found it, though, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It is cool that he found the actual boat, though. It is pronounced boat, right? It's not Boat. Darren, it's Boat. He found a Boat in Vicksburg. Well, I hope Grierson sailed on the Cairo, and I don't give a fuck, Mary. Okay, so that's what you get.
Did they go to Chickamauga?
They went to the Chutahatchee. This is what happens when you read too much, by the way. It really is. It actually
How to Bastardize Civil War Names 101 with Darren Weeks and Mary Fincher.
I was going to say, it's funny you put me first as usual on that one. You know, can't even say aunt correctly, but that's okay. Give me that look. I don't care. You know.
I'll hear about it later, I'm sure.
No, you totally will. You're so in trouble.
Jesus. Anyway. Yeah.
No response for that one.
No, I don't actually.
Mm-mm.
No, maybe later.
No,
Leonard, my Vicksburg campaign brain lexicon is exploding. Ryan, hey, tattooed diva bitch. To help you change the subject, you should look at tattooing in the Civil War at some point.
That'd be fun to do, actually. I'm gonna get a tattoo of the Cairo on my back.
With the phonetic pronunciation in brackets?
Anyway.
Speaking of tattoos, I'm getting one in a month.
You are? I'm very excited. December 4th?
Yep,
right?
December 4th. So less than a month. Well, that's my consultation, but I'm wondering if they're just going to do it that day too. So I have to find a really, well, you sent me one last night of OO signature.
Mm-hmm.
But like I was telling you, there's that letter that I read in Southern Storm by Trudeau that OO writes just before they get to Savannah. And I want to see if I can find that to have that signature from that letter because I want to be.
The one I sent you was actually pretty clear though.
It is. It's good.
That was a good one.
No, it's really good.
He's got a good signature. So,
he's got beautiful handwriting.
Mayor is getting a tattoo of O.O. Howard's signature. Yep. Are you going to go 6'9" statue right across your forehead like that rapper?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
You know? No. I'm almost ready for another tattoo, I think. I'm going to turn into friggin' Heckman, I think, and fucking look like...
But his tattoos are awesome.
He does have good ones. I'm going to end up looking like Nikki Sixx someday with all down my arms.
Speaking of Heckman, we mentioned this on the podcast, but we are going to be on John Heckman's broadcast on Monday night. So he is the Tattooed Historian on Facebook. He's at Inked Historian on Twitter, and you can find him on Instagram too. He's a really awesome guy. He and I are actually... He's huge into Canada and he's planning on moving here, just like I'm huge into the US, and we kind of fill in each other's gaps for how we, like, for instance, he loves Tim Hortons and I don't.
Tim Hortons, I don't want to say it's overrated, but it's kind of like the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada, isn't it? Kind of. I mean, I like Dunkin' Donuts, don't get me wrong.
But Heckman loves it. When I hung out with Heckman in Gettysburg, I brought him Tim Hortons coffee. Brought him a tin of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you told me that story before. Yeah. No, he's a good dude. So awesome. So we'll be on his I don't want to say podcast. It's kind of like a live stream thing. We'll be on that on Monday.
Yep.
7:00. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
8
Right.
o'clock. Yep. On Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube.
So wake the kids, tell the neighbors, we'll be on.
Yep.
That'll be an interesting events, and
Yep.
we'll go with that. So that'll be fun. So
Gabe
we'll get to talk about.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say bang my knee. The problem with this seat is I cross my legs. I always bang my knee in this pole that's here. But that's
maybe
another
it's
story.
the user, Darren. Gabe said the Cairo was built in Mound City, Illinois, where there is a national cemetery. Ryan said, don't ask for a K-row tattoo. It might come out as a row of Ks, not the right message.
He's right.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, somehow we got onto Vicksburg.
Well, I think we got onto Vicksburg because we were talking about
trench warfare.
About trench warfare and stuff like that. Yeah. And yeah, I think it was Gabe who got us onto that. So thanks for that derailment, Gabe. But that was pretty good. But it is true though, we were saying before about the beginning how it's basically 4 wars as far as styles go. And
you mean 4 battles?
No, I mean 4 wars. I mean, as far as you had basically trench warfare, you had Napoleonic warfare, you had Navy warfare, right?
Yep.
You had everything, and so it just ended up being a situation. You had guerrilla warfare, so you kind of had a bunch of different ones with Never Bedford Forrest and Mosby and John Hunt Morgan and all those people. So it's a colorful war to study in that regard. But it's funny how it evolves as it goes. And I think a lot of the generals who helped evolve with the war, specifically Grant, were the ones who were the most successful. And the ones who didn't evolve with the war, guys like McClellan, guys like that, where they were stuck in that same style, the ones who fell off. And I still say, you know what? I still say that if McClellan had taken control in 1863, after the war had been going a little bit, he'd have a better reputation historically than he does today. Because I think, you know.
Yeah. I'm just going to play devil's advocate here for a second. I wonder what our listeners think too about that. Like, what do you guys think if McClellan had taken command in 1863? Would his reputation be better than what it is? Would he be the Grant of the Civil War? The one thing that, I mean, I agree with you, but then I also think of McClellan's politics, that he was a Democrat. He was not an abolitionist. He would have had to change his views on slavery because he was against emancipation.
No, but right. I'm not thinking about his politics. I'm just thinking about his generalship.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, he's kind of like, okay, so for example, put this on a football for a second. Okay. We talk about Bill Belichick in Cleveland. He has, you know, people think he failed in Cleveland because they didn't win, but he built something that ultimately turned into the Baltimore Ravens in the early 2000s. So when they moved, so he built the foundation. They announced their move to Cleveland, to Baltimore, and everything went to shit. But he was building something, okay, that he wasn't allowed to finish. So if McClellan had taken over an army that was already built and didn't have to worry about the development, would he have been more successful? Who knows? But it's a fun thing to think about because he was the guy who had to build it. And then all the other guys who came later got to expand on what he built. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend he's not. He's a disaster in many ways. But I think people need to realize that the army Meade used in Gettysburg and those armies was the result of the work that McClellan did put in.
Yep, and Hooker as well.
And Hooker, and I think a lot of people forget that. I think people just think that McClellan took over a powerhouse army from the beginning, and he just couldn't win with them, and that's simply not true. Simply, if you look at Second Manassas with Pope, what he did, they had to rebuild it again. But then McClellan turns and takes that same army and gets a 51-49% victory at Antietam just a few weeks later.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying that he's deserving of a little more respect than he gets.
Oh, absolutely.
But that being said, he fucked up. I mean, he did.
He did, but they all did. But they all did. I completely agree with you. Like he shoulders too much blame where Lincoln and Halleck don't, and Stanton too. They all need to shoulder a little bit more blame. I mean, there's a lot of things about McClellan I don't like, but he built the AOP just like Hooker did. And like, I've always believed that the AOP that fought at Gettysburg was Hooker and McClellan's AOP. It wasn't Meade's by that point because Meade had only been in command for 72 or 48 hours at that point. And the two of them just don't get that credit. Like Hooker raised the morale after Fredericksburg, and that morale stayed up even after Chancellorsville.
Well, not just that,
Gone.
Mary, but not just that, but what Hooker did, he also helped rearrange the artillery in the
Yep.
corps, right? I mean, he did a lot of stuff, black, the black and white, just the X's and O's that he did.
Mhm.
And it's tough to say how they would have been. McClellan gets the reputation of not being aggressive. I think that there's some historical things that maybe disprove that. I think that but I think he also was somebody who was more interested in success for himself than the army. And I think that was the biggest deal.
Yeah,
He wanted
McClellan had an ego on him.
Yeah, he wanted to win because I honestly think he thought himself he was going to win and be the next George Washington. I think that's how he saw it. That's exactly how he think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he thought, and that was an ego thing.
Mhm.
But to say he's a complete failure is just that's just crazy.
I completely agree with you. I do agree with you about that. That like that's a very unfair assessment of McClellan. It's kind of like how people look at Howard. They're like, oh, he fucked up at Chancellorsville, so let's judge him on this for the rest of his life. When meanwhile you have somebody like Sherman, and I'm sure we'll talk about this on our next episode, which is about the March to the Sea. Sherman writes Howard and tells him that he thinks he's a great guy. He really respects the fact he's Christian, thinks he's a wonderful soldier, and he ends the letter by saying that he hopes the two of them can become good friends. And the two of them had very different views on African Americans. Like Howard was a man that at that time he did not see color at all. He's abolitionist and all that. Sherman's views are not. I mean, they're typical of the time. But he was
a 19th century. He'd be a lunatic racist today, but again, that was part of the time. I mean, it just was what I mean, Lincoln was no, he was no, Lord Garrison absolutely. Either. I mean,
no, he wasn't. Like Lincoln was going to ship them all down to some colony, and he did change his views through the war, and that's one of the cool things about Lincoln is how his thoughts on African Americans, the whole slavery issue, it evolves through the war. He completely changes his viewpoint on it. And that's one of the reasons like I find Lincoln fascinating, is just that how he changed through time with that. We do have a few comments here. Gabe said John Basil Turchin is buried there at the cemetery in I think Mound City. And Ryan said love Ivan Turchin, another amazing European experienced soldier. Hi Fritz.
Hey, Fritz.
And Fritz said, if you consider Reconstruction, there was also an insurgency. Roger. He still holds the last Browns playoff victory over the Patriots.
He does.
Nice.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Jim says, Turchin was the original colonel of the 19th Illinois Infantry, in which my great-great-grandfather, Alonzo Luce, fought. Very cool. Jim's got he knows so much about his, you must do a lot of genealogy, because you know so much about your family.
Nah, he's a good dude. He came on the round table with us, and he was saying some good shit. So
Jim and I have been following each other for I think 6 years now.
Now the next time we're doing a round table again. It's coming up, Mary.
2 weeks.
So everybody needs to jump on the round table, especially you, Fritz. You need to go on the round table so we can hang out.
Yeah, and this time I need to make sure I send Ryan hadn't emailed me, and then I totally forgot that he wanted to come on, and I should have just messaged him on Facebook.
Well, Heckman's still pissed off at you, by the way.
Heckman's not pissed off at me.
Oh, he hates you now. Oh my.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll give me shit on Monday night. Ryan said McClellan wouldn't have prospered later in the war. I can't see him being a cooperative division or corps commander. He could only jump up to the top of the list early on off the back of these little battles where it was easier to parlay minor successes into big promotions. Jim, Mound City, was that the original site of the Bang Barn?
Mound City is right near Pound Town. Very close.
Comment of the day from Jim.
Jim wins. Jim wins.
Leonard, if not, I'm sure they got a franchise at some point. That's right, we're going to franchise the shit out of the Undulations Bang Barn strip club.
Mary and I, we decided we're going to open up a strip club in Gettysburg called Undulations.
Yeah.
God, can you?
Thanks to Amy for that.
That's what you need is Southern Pennsylvania people in a strip club. That's exactly what you need.
Gabe said he died in Anna, Illinois, which is my hometown. And
sure, it's pronounced Anna. It's not Anna.
Anyway, that could have went really dark quickly.
Literally.
Allie said, I just don't think McClellan would have worked well with Lincoln even in 1863. One of Grant's huge issues with the Army of the Potomac when he got there was that that sort of culture that was set in from the jump with McClellan, very cautious. I think that Army just went through a lot with a lot of turnover. It created this weird environment and could be very frustrating at times, but I think it complicated things. Absolutely. The Eastern theater is very different from the Western theater. The Western theater, I liken it to being kind of the island of misfit toys. So someone like Howard can go out there. He doesn't have success in the Eastern theater, but he can go out there and he has all this success.
Well, I think McClellan with the Lincoln thing, I think McClellan was like, let the military guys fight the war.
Yeah.
And leave the politicians out of it.
Yeah, but that's how Reynolds felt too.
Right. Well, if they were obviously talking, maybe chilling with the old bang barn down there, because Reynolds obviously, when he turned down command, which you could say theoretically cost him his life, right? Sort of.
It did.
That the word was out that they were meddlers, and that was the whole thing. And I think it was a situation where it's like, well, you know, I'm a West Point guy, I'm a military guy. Let us fight the war and stop. I think that to Allie's point, she's right.
Yep.
But I think it would have taken a little bit of capitulation from the administration to let them fight, and they clearly weren't going to let them do that. They weren't going to do it. You know?
And that was evident when Reynolds gets called to Washington in June to meet with Lincoln, and Lincoln's like, "Do you want command?" And Reynolds like, "Well, are you going to fucking get off my back?"
You know what it's like, and Fritz will like this. It's like the Cowboys with Jerry Jones. No matter what the coach does, Jerry Jones is going to meddle. And so if you're going to coach the Dallas Cowboys, you have to realize that you're going to have an owner who's not a football guy, as much as he thinks he is, he's an oil guy, is going to be the one who calls the shots. And that's why they go through so many coaches and why they bring in disasters like Jason Garrett down there, who probably cost them a couple of Super Bowls. But I think it's a good, if you want to make a pop culture modern day comparison, that's kind of how it was. It was like having an owner of a football team who meddles too much. And Jones is the ultimate meddler with that. But that's how I've always seen it. I've always seen that. Another beer for you, by the way?
Yeah, get off my back. You've had
number 7.
Well, considering I have you in my life, it's probably
7 beers ago.
Yep, that's my life now.
Yes. So Lisa, yes, undulations. So that's going to be the plan.
But Liza also says very good points. The AOP was built by McClellan and Hooker. Personally, McClellan was a piece of shit. Totally agree.
Yeah, he was.
Although I do have a bit of more respect for him than I used to. But he was a great administrator. I think in a weird way, the AOP gained confidence by being the underdogs like Grant and by their own endurance. Yep. Yeah. And I think too, like Lincoln in June of 1863 was not the same Lincoln in actually July of 1863. I think he had a very quick change. You know, like he's at this meeting with Reynolds and he's like, nah, you know what? I'm not going to give over control. And, Reynolds fuck that.
Hold on a second. AOP was underdogs though?
In a way they were.
They were?
I think so.
I mean, they always had more guys. They always had better weapons. They always had more soldiers. Right?
I think they got an underdog like Grant as their commander. You know, well, he wasn't commanding the AOP, he's commanding all the armies. Meade is commanding the AOP, and he commands it till the end of the Civil War.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going with this, Fincher.
But I mean, like you look at Lincoln in June of 1863, where he's telling Reynolds, like, no, I'm not going to give over command. And Reynolds is like, fuck that. But by the way, my friend George, he'd be a really good commander. So then Meade gets command of it. Gettysburg happens, and Lincoln writes him that letter he never sends. And I think that's when Lincoln has this kind of, oh shit moment. This was what McClellan experienced, Burnside, Hooker, and now Meade, and he never sends them the letter. And I think that's when Lincoln starts to realize, I need to step back.
Well, let me ask you a quality what-if question, Fincheroo, okay? What if Lincoln and Halleck, and it's never going to happen, so let's just announce it, right? It's never going to happen. What if they said, McClellan, Grant, all you guys fighting, we're going to stay out of this. You fight it. How do you think the war would have turned out if they stayed out completely?
That's a really
McClellan says, I just give me soldiers, give me material, and we'll win this war. And then they just said, you know what? Lincoln was dealing with the 1864 election, so he had to. What if they just said, we're going to stay completely out?
I think it depends on what year that happens, because if it happens before the Emancipation, completely different story. If it happens after the Emancipation, it probably ends quicker, you know?
I mean, at the end of the day, they won the war. I mean, it
Yeah.
worked out well. I mean, it's just so whatever Lincoln did, it worked. It did. But it's always fun to consider how the what if thing. I know some of the Facebook pages got all bent out of shape with the what if thing. You mentioned what if in Ghost you would get banned from half the Civil War
Yep.
serious Facebook pages like me.
I love the what ifs because it makes you think more critically about the battle or the person that you're talking about. You know, for instance, like what if Albert Sidney Johnston had not been killed at Shiloh? You know, you and I have talked about that many times. It would have been a very different Vicksburg campaign. What if Patrick Cleburne had been in charge at Atlanta? Sherman would have had a hell of a time in taking Atlanta. You know,
and Jim's right too. The Army of the Tennessee was the underdog, and he's right. They were. That we want to talk about underdogs in the Union Army of the Tennessee.
Yeah, they were the, you know, kind of the again, it's the island of misfit toys, right? It's their.
It was almost like we're going to try to put our best generals in the East because we were near Washington, and we're going to put those other guys out west, and they're going to deal with it. In the Confederacy, to Lincoln, and to their benefit, because Johnston was killed at Shiloh, and they had that rotating door of fuck-ups left and right replacing them in the West. And I know you're going to mention Cleburne here pretty soon. You notice I mispronounced that on purpose, by the way, just in case you're curious. I know it's Cleburne, so get off my back, Fincher.
Apparently it's pronounced Claiborne in the South.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Jessica and I were talking about that when we were at Chickamauga together.
But my overall point, though, was the guys at the Rosecrans of the world had the benefit of not having the pressure because they had really no formidable enemy to go against. They really, except they were fighting in a different country. They had supply line issues. They had things like that. But they definitely had, there was a blind spot in the West. But it wasn't so in the Confederacy because Jeff Davis would go out there all the time. He was always traveling out to the West.
He was out there after Chickamauga. He was out there quite a bit. I mean, they had that little team building meeting where everybody was like, Braxton Bragg sucks. And Davis is like, don't worry, dude, I got your phone.
So Mike Jenkins makes a really good point here, okay? And I'm going to take this beyond what he said.
Okay.
Ultimate fighting, who wins? Sickles' leg or Stonewall's arm?
Can we throw Howard's arm in there too?
I guess so.
I'm gonna go with Dan Sickles.
I mean, you know, you're right. You're right. If Jackson's arm had been at Gettysburg, it would have totally whipped Sickles' leg. I just took it the next step. But he's. I don't know though. I don't know because how is it going to walk?
Like Thing in Addams Family.
That would explain the Ghost of Gettysburg thing.
Could you imagine? You see this hand?
That'd be creepy as hell. Wait. God.
Jim said, just going back here, some of these comments. Yes, I've been doing genealogy for over 30 years. I got bored with my family and started tracing notable Americans to see how many I can connect. The database is approaching 61,000 names. Well, good for you. Allie said, I think that's the big issue. Politics and the war were just going to intersect the whole time. You just needed someone at the head who could handle both, and Grant eventually did, even though he also had his frustrations. Sounds like a pain in the ass to me. Yeah, it would have been. Like, and Grant and Lincoln were on the same page too regarding slavery. Like they could read each other so well. And that was when Lincoln was like, okay, I'm going to let you go do your thing. Sherman does his thing down in Georgia, and Sheridan does his thing in the Shenandoah, and let's end this shit now.
Yeah.
Ryan said, but that we went to West Point, we know best, doesn't cut any mustard with Lincoln later, especially after he takes direct command after Norfolk for a brief period, capturing Norfolk, etc. Only time the president has taken command directly in the field. Must have given Lincoln a stronger idea that he knew what he was doing.
That's not a great what if. What if Lincoln went to West Point? He had a military background.
Like Jeff Davis?
Yeah. What if
But you look at somebody like Jeff Davis, who's a micromanager, and he can't deal with his armies. He's putting people in command like Braxton Bragg and John Bell Hood for personal reasons. He's too much of a micromanager, whereas Lincoln was not the micromanager. So I think that's where the West Point training would have come in to Lincoln's benefit. Actually, that's a really good point.
I mean, because he comes from almost a more of a innocent, I don't want to say innocent background, but his mind is not skewed by theory.
Yeah.
and he probably uses more logic, I think,
That's
in
and
his
that might have been the case.
determination.
Yep,
You
that might
know,
have been the case for Claiborne as well.
you
Claiborne
know,
was a soldier in the British Army.
and it might have also given Lincoln a benefit because he could, as we mentioned before, as the war changed, he could change based on logic and what he
Yep.
saw, versus a guy like Jeff Davis learned by what he was trained and didn't understand the changing war dynamic and stayed with it, right?
Yep.
And if it wasn't for Lee and even Hood, who someone mentioned before, Hood had an arm and a leg, so he would have beat both of them if you want to take the battle.
Neither worked.
Yeah, but he would have gone to the right all the time. He would have kept flanking the right. That would have been the problem. So
Poor Hood.
expose his left. Yeah, exactly.
Mike said one advantage the Union had in the Western Theater was the Confederates couldn't threaten DC to take the pressure off themselves like they could in the Eastern Theater. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, Jim's comment about the Army of the Tennessee being the underdog. And Leonard said, indeed, the South also couldn't defend the rivers. The Union Navy could use them to plunge deep into the Confederacy relatively unchallenged. That's true. And the one thing about the Vicksburg campaign, going back to that, is the Navy doesn't get the love it deserves. But I think in Groom's book, as well as Miller's recent book about Vicksburg, the Navy gets a little bit more their story told.
But that's a good point. But you know what, though? As good as Farragut ultimately ended up being, you think about the mistakes they made. You know, with Nathaniel Banks from beautiful Waltham, Massachusetts, he never really came up. They had a fiasco with, Farragut went to attack Vicksburg, then decided on his own, basically, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, evacuate the dance floor.
Evacuate. He gets his ass sent back.
Yeah.
They finally do the whole running of the gauntlet thing, and they ended up at Bruinsville, and they ended up cutting all that thing. But that's a case where they really probably could have done better. Mm-hmm. Right? It seemed like a lot of stops and starts with that.
It was them feeling their way through, learning, what to do. And Grant sending Sherman on the Chickasaw thing, and that just being a complete clusterfuck.
But now we're talking about Vicksburg again. Here we go. But you talk about Deer Creek, for example, how they got bailed out because they ultimately ended up, knocking the dams down, trying to flood, and it didn't work. But they end up getting stuck in Deer Creek, and the Confederates are shooting at them, and all of a sudden the water rises because the creek that they knocked the dam down, and basically saves their asses. There were so many 4th and 10s the Union connected on that Vicksburg campaign.
Oh yeah,
and it was like the campaign itself, I think, in hindsight, was brilliant, but the execution.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of like Fredericksburg, right? Like, we're going to talk about in December. Burnside has a brilliant campaign, but unless certain things can happen, like the dog needs to shut up. Unless certain things can happen, then you're not going to have, he can't get the victory he needs, right? Like he needs those pontoons. Oh, Liza, she seconded victory without the end of slavery. Yep. If Lincoln had just let them go in 1862.
Yeah.
Yep. And Ryan said, I think it's May 62 when Lincoln gives orders directly for 17 days to local commanders.
This is the way it was before we started, and this is why we were late, because the look on her face right now, that's the same fucking look.
This is what I deal with all the fucking time.
And so we're getting ready to sign on, and this is what it sounded like. And you want to look at her face right now. She wants to kick a panda right now. That's how mad she is. This is hilarious.
Kick a panda in the balls. That's how mad I am.
That's how we ended up going on late. But you need to fix that dog. You need to go over there and take care of it. You and your 5'4", 100-pound frame.
He's gonna run over to her right now, and she's saying, "Come here, Lou." He's gonna run over to her, and she's gonna be like, "Good boy." That's not how you.
But the look on her face, I'm glad that happened, because it was like 10:05, and that's what that was the look. The dog is barking, and she looks like she was gonna murder. It was great. I'm glad that happened again. I'm glad.
This is why I have gray hair.
It's so
Between
funny.
you and that dog, this is why I have gray hair.
Blame me for your gray. Okay, you don't blame me. This is gray hair. It was dark in April.
I know.
The hell.
Mike's comment about Jackson's arm, that's amazing. Allie, I would pay to see that. Ryan Carney's arm. Hood's leg and arm as well. Yes, let's have a Civil War, kind of like wrestling, right? Like death cage match of
Well, that's what I was
limbs.
saying. You
Howard's
could have a
arm.
limb battle, you know?
Ryan, now I'm on my second beer, Old Crafty Hen Oak Aged Vintage Ale from Moorland Glen.
Yeah, I
Canada
give him
Distillery.
a hero comment for that because he deserves that. And
Nice.
yeah, not
Jim,
the
the
panda.
Battle of Amputated Limbs sounds like an episode of Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Game of Bones. Think about it.
Game of Bones.
Right. The North remembers.
Ryan said, and Hood reference takes you full circle back to Shanks Evans, who drunk was better than Hood sober and had Hood arrested. Lee released him. There's all evidence you need. Lee wasn't as infallible as people claimed.
Oh, what are you talking about? He walked on water. He turned water into wine. Come on. I read that in Douglas Southall Freeman, so I know it's true.
I must be. Actually, speaking of Lee, there is a really good, it's actually a young adult. So it's meant for like young adult readers, so teenagers, early 20s, whatever.
Glad you cleared that up.
I'll always be younger than you.
I don't know if let's say.
Sips beer in shade.
Wow.
Anyway,
at least give me a Z snap on that if you're gonna go full suck.
There's a really good General Lee biography. It's a great introductory biography, and it's written by my friend Brandon Marie Miller, and she's a really awesome author. She uses Lee's letters that he wrote to tell his story, and it is not lost cause. It just tells it like it is, and it's the best biography I've ever read about him. It's really good. Yeah, no, it's a great introduction to him, and then after you can go on to other biographies, but hers was really good.
Yeah, Lennon's right though that the canal project they were going to do ended up being a complete mess. They were going to dig a canal and go around the guns, and of course it didn't work out. Well. Jim, throw the dog a steak. Jim, you realize she feeds a stray cat that comes in her yard?
Yeah, I do. He's not stray. Romeo's not stray. He lives across the road.
But you can't keep feeding that cat, Mary. That's why he keeps
nice
coming.
Boy.
But that's. All right, you know what? Okay.
He's 17 years old. I got to make him happy.
The dogs, if Barksdale hadn't died at Gettysburg, yeah. Well, she calls that dog Braxton Bark.
Braxton
right?
Bark. Braxton Bark.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
I think you should call it. What did I say it was called the other day? I forget what I called it. Never mind. But there's speaking of animals, there's a chicken. Right?
Oh yeah.
And we talk about who lives
Hannibal
right
Hamlin.
We call him Hannibal Hamlin because he buck. Like I haven't heard him in a while. I think the coyotes got him.
I was gonna I remember like Darren and I will be like texting in the morning and I'll get this like all in caps. Oh my God, Hannibal Hamlin's back.
We call him Hannibal Hamlin. That's what we call the chicken in my neighborhood.
I got the video one day of him like doing this. Buck, 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 buck.
Yeah. We haven't heard him in a while.
Jim said, I agree. Miller's book pays well-deserved homage to the Brownwater Navy and its role in the ultimate success at Vicksburg. Yeah, again, so this book, Vicksburg, the campaign that Grant's campaign that broke the Confederacy's back, came out. Came out last year. Donald L. Miller wrote it. Simon & Schuster was very nice and sent me a copy of it, which I reviewed on my blog. But I hope Miller writes more books about the Civil War because it was really good.
Jim,
Liza liked your Kick-a-Panda.
Oh yeah, you should kick a bit. Jim, have you read the Groom book on Vicksburg? If anybody who's read that, I'd love to know what their opinion of it is, because I just finished that not too long ago, and I found it to be a little bit tedious. It was pretty cool that this guy is the same author who wrote Forrest Gump, the fiction book, but he's a historian. So if you've read that, let me know what you thought about that, because I liked it, but I just thought it should have started way later. It went way back too early. I mean, we don't need to hear about the Big Bang Theory and how the Earth was cooling.
I think I know what I'm going to get you for your birthday.
What?
I'm telling you.
Okay. Anyway, but how you going with this?
Oh, Miller's book is really it's probably the book to read about Vicksburg. Groom also wrote a book about Shiloh, which I've used for some research I've done about Shiloh in a blog post I did a few years ago. But I'm thinking now I would love Miller to write a book about Shiloh.
Yeah.
Because he told it so well, and like when he was talking about running the gauntlet, It was the best part of the book. Like, it was so good. Another good book about the Vicksburg campaign is Jeff Shara's historical fiction about it. It's really good too. It and Miller's book are great to, read one then read the other.
No, I think
Allie said that Miller book is one of my favorite Civil War books. He made it clear and easy to read, which is the perfect cause. The Vicksburg campaign can be tricky. Yeah, he did. He makes it so easy and clear and concise. And I wish more Civil War books were written like that. I find him to be, Allie, I think you've read Trudeau before, but I find his writing style to be a lot like Trudeau's. He can break something down and it's kind of like, not necessarily explain to me like I'm 5, but he makes it so accessible for people. And he's such a great writer. Trudeau's March to the Sea book, Southern Storm, excellent. His book about Lincoln's time in City Point near the end of his life and the end of the Civil War was really, really good too. His book about Gettysburg is what I recommend for people to start their journey into Gettysburg.
Yeah, I started with Sears at Gettysburg, but I need to read that Miller book because that's, I think it'd just be a better read. I like the Groom book. Don't get me wrong, I did. I just thought that it was a little too nerdy for the sake of being nerdy.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But it was a classic look how smart I am writer book.
Miller's not like that at all.
You know what it reminded me a lot of Bruce Catton, his books. That's what he kind of reminded me of. Where it was this high level, like you could have this book be 50 pages, 100 pages less if you just stop talking about how smart you are, how much you know.
Yeah, but I like that.
Yeah, but I liked it though. I did like it. And now I'm doing the Trudeau book for the Southern Storm, so we can get ready for our March to the Sea for next week with you. So my God, watching you talk about Sherman, my God, it's like watching a kid talk about Santa
But I can
Claus.
talk about Howard being the right-wing commander, and I'm so excited about that.
I'm going to sit there like this the whole time, just my ears crossed, arms crossed, just like this. Right? And you're just gonna go.
Liza said the Miller book is brilliant. My great-great-grandpa, 2nd Wisconsin Cavalry, and my great-great-uncle were there. That's awesome. I love it when people talk about their, like, who fought in the Civil War and all that. It's really, really cool. And Jim said, I did, but it's been so long ago, I don't remember much about it, referring to the Groom book. I don't remember the narrative flow really well, but yes, I think it's much like the Miller book. It starts way back in the Civil War rewind machine. Yeah, Miller does, but he tells it in a way that is really interesting. And Allie said, yeah, I agree. I love Trudeau's books. The one about Lincoln at City Point is also one of my favorites. Some great insight and stories. The bit with Lincoln and the kittens. Oh yeah. Trudeau talks about, so he breaks it down day by day, what happens when Lincoln is at City Point. And he actually dispels quite a few myths as well. Like, Trudeau argues in that book that Lincoln did not go into Jeff Davis's office and sit in his chair. And that one, like, I know people in the Lincoln community who have read that, and that rocked their world. And I was like, okay, like, Trudeau's presenting a great argument for this. He's dispelling some of these myths. And he says, this is something that, was probably more of a propaganda thing than it was, truth.
Hey, some breaking news on the world history thing.
Yep.
This country officially has a new president. So I'm not going to comment one way or the other, just that the long election cycle is finally over as they finally announced Joe Biden as the new U.S. president. So
True Daddy and I are happy.
Yeah, exactly. So God bless the USA.
That's awesome. Anyway, and we've got it recorded too.
Yeah. So
we can look back on this in 30 years and like, oh, look at this.
Remember that day that young kid Biden was president?
Shut up, fucker.
but to your point though, I think it is interesting though to read these specific writers and their spins on certain things. I like Sears. I like Fonz. I mean, I like Coddington. I like them all, but but it is interesting to read the Freemans of the world and the Cattons of the world too, because these guys wrote a long time ago, especially Douglas Southall Freeman. And granted, you read his books on Robert E. Lee, and I don't know how he must have wrote that book with one hand, if you know what I mean, because there's just no way in the world he was going to be able to. It is that one-sided, but it's still a good read. And the more you read, if you want to read like Edward Bonekemper's book on the Lost Cause, is a good offset to Freeman, but at the same time, it's it's one of those things where it's always good to read different perspectives. And like I said before, as George Carlin says, don't read, always question what you read,
Yep.
because you always got to find out what the intentions are behind the writer.
Yep. And that's what I do. And even, you know, as someone who, I mean, Sherman was my favorite general for a long time, and now it's Howard, but having those two as my favorite generals, you know, I do have to read a lot of stuff that is negative towards them. But to hear positive stuff about them is great too. But I think in reading the negative stuff, you learn a little bit more about them, and you can kind of look, okay, why is this person writing negatively about them? What are their sources, and what sources are they using that could be biased towards them, and what is their agenda?
Well, that's the whole thing, is these guys, it's kind of like when you read the, you know, when you read these like even the Grant one, the memoirs. No one writes a memoir to talk about how many things they fucked up in life. You want to write about the greatest things in the world. Like Mary, your memoir, every general's name is going to be pronounced correctly. Every single one. Okay. There's many things I could talk about that I'm not going to talk about, but I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think you're, but that's the point of it though, is these people are going to talk about what makes them better and what ultimately makes them legitimate. But the people who write about them are the same way, and that's the reality. And so you always have to look at the overall big picture.
Exactly. Yeah. And I watched a really good YouTube video the other day, which was by American Battlefields. And it was about the Battle of Lookout Mountain. And Gary Edelman made a really good point in it, along with the other people that he was with. And they were talking about how Grant and Sherman had in their mind that they both wanted Sherman to have the victory for getting rid of the siege, as well as driving the Confederates away. So when you have someone like Hooker and Thomas coming in, and ultimately they are the reasons why Chattanooga was won for the Union in November, like that doesn't jive with what they were trying to do. So when you read Grant's memoirs, and he's basically saying Lookout Mountain didn't happen and Thomas didn't have much of a role, as what he says, like you have to look at why that is. And a lot of people, I think, take that for true. So you have someone like Hooker, who, I mean, Hooker's arrogant, he's a bastard, but what he did at Lookout Mountain, like he 100% deserves the credit for it, and he doesn't get it. Now, yeah, he did have a beautiful painting commissioned about it, but I think that was also because he was like, fuck you, Grant, for how you're treating me. And same with Thomas. Like you have to look at what their agenda is and what they were trying to achieve. And it's clear that Sherman and Grant got together after, and they're like, okay, this is what we need to say about it to make ourselves look better.
Wow, that's
and I love Grant. I love Grant. I respect him, but what he did to Hooker and Thomas it's not cool.
No, I mean they have that's the best part about this. You read both sides of it. I mean, you definitely want to understand the big picture with these guys. So yeah.
There's some comments here. Roger, it's finally called it celebrating time. Yeah. So I was just thinking about this is really awesome. So like 30 years from now, when someone says, where were you when Biden was officially announced president? I was doing a Facebook Live about the Civil War.
That's pretty cool.
And I will remember every person I was with. And that's really awesome. You know?
Well, how many people are you with?
With 12 people right now.
Okay. All right. Okay. They're just people. I mean,
no, I'm doing a Facebook Live.
How many people do you see around you right now? How many people are in your head?
Hello, I'm talking about you and everyone watching this Facebook
I know,
Live.
I'm just fucking with you, Jesus Christ. But you know what though? But seriously, if for people who, just so you know, for people who listen to the podcast, we recorded that on Tuesday night during the election.
We did.
And so it was we did it with keeping track while it was run at the same time.
Yeah. And I can tell you from editing it, it was, as we got progressively near the end of it, I could tell by how many and all this we were saying, which I edited out.
And I'm not going to say who I was rooting for, but I'm very happy right now. So we'll leave it at that, okay?
I am too.
But there was a moment in the recording where, well, we had to redo part of it, put it that way.
We did.
It came up
we had
well.
to stop recording. I had to splice the two together.
Mary's editing skills, because she, I don't know if there was a dog barking nearby, but her mood changed at one point during it. You shake your head. You think it'd be a hard time.
It's funny. I'm laughing about it. Ryan
But-
said, someday you'll have to do your favorite book for each battle. I'll start with Donnybrook for Bull Run by David Dietzer. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Leonard, Glory, Hallelujah. Liza,
Easy for you to
Southern
say.
Storm. Thanks, Mayor. Jim said, Lincoln never met a stray cat he didn't like, and poor Fido came to an unfortunate end. Yeah, the story of Fido, Lincoln's dog. So Fido
Mhm.
could not go to Washington because he was a very anxiety-ridden dog, and Lincoln felt that like the train ride there, plus all the noise from the city, would just stress him out to no end. So Fido went to live with another family. And so unfortunately, about a year after Lincoln was killed, Fido was actually stabbed by somebody in the street, because I guess he jumped up because he was a very friendly dog, and that's how he met his end, which was really sad. But Lincoln, he had a couple cats in the White House. Tabby was one, and Dixie was the other. He was very much an animal lover, and he would feed the cat at the table, much to Mary's chagrin. And she said something to him one time, because he was obviously using silverware that some other president had used, and he was like, if it's good enough for this guy, it's good enough for Tabby, kind of thing.
So he was feeding stray cats too?
He was. Well, they were his pets.
I'm just kidding.
Ryan
No
said,
sense of
she
humor.
who
We have
must
no
be a
sense of humor today. I'm just even paying attention.
later.
Wow.
Yeah,
later.
Ryan said, she who must be obeyed just told me to stop using the letter U. You're writing to Americans. They don't use the letter U. Stop writing favorite or honor. Me, one of them is Canadian. I don't know if Canadians have a policy on the letter U. We do. We use the U spelling, and then I sometimes don't use it, and then I get shit for it. Leonard, you can use you. Y'all invented the language. We bastardized it.
You know what? He's right about that. He's right about that. You know,
Gabe, 12 people and a dog. 12 people and a dog internationally.
that sounds like a bad friggin' Disney movie right there.
Does, 12 people and a dog. And a panda.
it's all friggin' funny. But
Jim said, not to mention what Grant did to Rosecrans, but Grant is still one of my favorites just because he was the underdog general of the war and overcame so much. That was actually, Jim, that reminded me of something from the Battlefields video that I watched the other day, and I was not aware of this, and I mean, I was happy to learn it. But so Rosecrans had a plan in place to basically break the siege of Chattanooga, and Grant learned what that plan was and never gave Rosecrans credit. Which is, that's like just again, like Rosecrans showed talent in the Tullahoma campaign, but I think it's kind of like Hooker in Chancellorsville. Like, he just balks for some reason. I don't know. I might balk too if I see a sea of fucking gray coming at me during the breakthrough at my headquarters, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Like we said before, it's easy to look back. It's always easy to look back and make these decisions for these guys. You know, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that people just simply don't get. Is that these decisions are made in a vacuum in real time, and that's why I said this before. You got to read the Abner Small book. You have to read the Abner Small book. On the Road to Richmond is the
E.P.
best.
Alexander.
He's speaking of Ball's Bluff, you know, but he certainly. But Small's book is the best period diary by far, because it describes the individual situations in real time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is campy stuff as far as what they're doing, but he basically admits we had no idea what was going on 100 yards to our north, 100 yards to our south. We knew it was in front of us, and any soldier or general who says what was going on in the other parts of the battlefield has no idea what they're talking about. It's all looking back and making up stories because no one knew anything. It really tells that story. So if I could book enable anyone, Mary, okay, or anybody else listening, read The Road to Richmond by Abner Small, and you will thank me for it. And you can send your thank yous to civilwarbreakfastclub@gmail.com.
You didn't say Cape Cod.
Not now, I will, but in all seriousness, it's a real good book, because it's the one book, and nothing wrong with the Rhodes book, nothing wrong with the Watkins book, nothing wrong with any of those other diaries, but this one is different because it talks about what they didn't know versus what looking back in time about what they thought. It's really unique. So check that book out. You know.
We got some. Oh, Allie had a really good comment. Oh yeah, one of the most entertaining things to read about when it comes to all the generals is how they were all petty with one another. High school girls level of drama. I love it. Haha. Yeah, you want to see some of that, like some of that Army of Tennessee, post Chickamauga, like Braxton Bragg makes everything personal. And I mean, I do not like Nathan Bedford Forrest as a person at all. He was not a good human, but my God, the man could write insult letters. And so after Chickamauga, Braxton Bragg, he ends up, just before the battles of Chattanooga, he ends up taking some of Nathan Bedford Forrest cavalry from him and giving him to Wheeler, and he doesn't tell him about it. And it was just because he felt Forrest was going around and being all like, look at me, I'm like Jen Stewart, kind of being a diva. And meanwhile, Forrest is trying to feed him intelligence about what the Union is doing. So Forrest writes him this scathing letter. And he says to Bragg, if you were any half of a man, or he's like, if you were a man, I would slap your jowls and make you regret it, stuff like that. And then he ends up by saying, if you ever come across my path again, it will be at the peril of your life. And he leaves.
What are jowls? Oh, okay.
Jowls.
Okay. Just curious.
No, it's in the letter. Read the letter. We'll talk about the letter.
Frankly, it sounds made up.
Laura said, I stepped away for a minute. Did you guys see Biden won? Yep, we did.
Who is this Biden you speak of?
Yep. And Laura said, not to drag modern politics into it. Sorry. No, Laura, we mentioned it. We were actually talking about, I was mentioning, I will always remember where I was. Oh, look who's opening his 50th beer of the day. Darren Weeks.
So this beer, just so you know, it's Back to the Future beer.
Of that movie.
Gigawatts. With the thing, it's really, really cool. So if I drink this, I'll go back to 1955, which actually, speaking of that, it was November 5th, 1955 when he goes back, which was yesterday.
Yep, and that's also Guy Fawkes Day, which we watched V for Vendetta the other night, which was an awesome movie.
Isn't that a good movie, though?
I love that movie.
I would love to be able to talk like that guy.
Oh yeah, and also like the way he was like making breakfast too, as he's being all.
His apron,
the fucking apron.
But he's talking like ultimate Victorian friggin',
He's amazing.
But it was so good though. Oh, was that a good movie? If anybody's seen V for Vendetta, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. Okay, but the guy.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the guy who played him. It just was brilliant as far as just the dictation and the language, and I would kill to talk. Imagine if I talked that all the time, Mary. That's how it was. How this fun our podcast would be. Oh God, it's tough enough as it is. Put two words together.
I couldn't do it. Ryan said Rosecrans gets a lot of shit. Is there an anti-Catholic thing? I mean, he was the most senior Catholic in the army, and there is still a lot of prejudice in this era. I mean, I'm Irish, so I'm looking for it. Yeah, I think there probably was a little bit of the anti-Catholic thing going on for him as well. But just to, like, Grant had his circle. Grant had his agenda. I love him, but like he had things going on.
They all did. They all did.
Gabe, yesterday was the 6th. Okay, sorry. Yes. So 2 days ago. I love that Gabe calls you out. Karma.
That was you who screwed that date up. You blame me my ass for. She's on the Canadian calendar, the Gregorian calendar. Guy Fawkes Day, that Guy Fawkes, that's a real deal right there, though. That's pretty cool. I mean,
I remember when I was in England when I was 11 years old and driving around the countryside with my aunt and my grandpa one day. And
look at you.
And she pointed to this one place and she's like, that's where Guy Fawkes planned his stuff. And I was like, oh my God. Because my grandpa had been telling me about Guy Fawkes since I was like 5 years old. So I knew who he was. And I was like, I'm like, can we pull over? And they're like, no, we can't.
Yeah. Big Ben, Parliament.
Yeah, that's what it was like. They're like, we have to get to the next pub. Ryan said, I'm stuck here celebrating Guy Fawkes Night with the English. It makes no sense. English Catholics fail to blow up a Scottish king. My inside was not well received. Gabe, the 5th of November, remember.
Yeah.
And he's like lists, like, oh, wow. He knows all the lyrics to what it is.
Yeah.
Good for you, Gabe.
Hey, so Ryan, I have to ask: do people celebrate Guy Fawkes Day on November
They do.
5th? Is that a deal? Like it's like Mardi Gras? Because I would celebrate the hell out of that.
It's Bond. I shared your post the other day, and my cousin.
You actually did. I was impressed with that.
I share a lot of your shit weeks.
You do. Yeah, you do.
Forget that. Anyway,
give you shit.
My cousin Lois and also my uncle Roger, who both live in England, they commented on it. And Lois is a school teacher, and she said she had been telling the kids about it all week. But the one thing that I said to you the other night when we were watching it is, I was like, we got to go to England sometime for bonfire night. I've always wanted to do that.
Guys, one more historical modern politics thing might be kind of funny for some people.
Yes, just do it.
The current president found out he lost while playing golf on a golf course. That's how he was told. Anyway, bonfire, we found out from watching that Bly Manor was the origin of that phrase is by burning bodies.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Bly
Manor is another awesome show to watch. Hill House as well. But yeah, V for Vendetta, that is in my top 5 favorite movies. I love that. Ryan, oh yes, bonfires and fireworks. Gabe, it's called copy and paste, LOL.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
But seriously, but V for Vendetta is really, really good.
Yep.
I know we're going off the track here, but
no, I think it was a really appropriate movie to watch, and it's like
it was especially it shows the importance of keeping up and staying with politics and things like that. But the reality of it is, whatever. But I loved it because it was just a very good movie. Natalie Portman's really good in this.
Yeah, she's really good. I love her. She's one of my favorite actresses.
She's from she was born in Israel. She's Israeli.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
But I think she's lived here in the U.S. for a while.
Yep.
No,
she's.
But
I haven't seen a movie with her I didn't like. Even the first, like the Star Wars movie,
the Jar Jar Binks story.
I hate that movie, but I love her and Ewan McGregor in it. Love them in it.
The Star Wars
here.
movie. Oh yeah.
Says Team Wheaton is really good at roofing. Just so y'all know, can roof. Yeah, he can because he's got a fucking bionic arm. Cheers.
Yeah. It's so weird Ben would mention Wheaton. That's so unusual.
I know.
But we probably should do some kind of podcast on Wheaton. So we should do a Wheaton versus O.O. Howard podcast sometime. That'd be fun.
I think we should just start doing individual. Actually, we should start talking about individual generals.
There's only so much you can do about them, though, to be honest. But
we've done that on Rail Splitter, though. We talked about Hooker, researching Hooker for Rail Splitter changed my entire opinion about him. Like Nick and I were just doing the podcast because Jeremy was doing his PhD at the time, so he took a step back. We did an episode about Hooker, and both of us went into it thinking, fuck Hooker, and both of us came out like, holy shit, we're Team Hooker now. Like, this guy did a lot of great things for the AOP.
Yeah, well, I've been talking about that for a while. I mean, it's just certainly, and like you said before, as you humanize these people and study these people, you're going to learn more about them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You could take a guy like Lincoln, and you could find his flaws. You could find a guy like Sickles and find his positives. It depends. It's getting out of the historical memory thing we've talked about many, many times, and just looking at the overall big picture of what these guys were. Look, no one's perfect, No. Well, present company excluded, Mary, But seriously, it's
agree.
Ooh. but seriously,
Fucker.
It's but every one of them, and so that's why you got to study these guys individually, and don't go by the reputations, because when we did that deep dive into McClellan, and admittedly, we both went into that thinking he was kind of a dick, and he still is a dick, but I think we learned more positives about him. And I knew a lot of it before, but I just didn't realize how many more positive quotes and stories from legit people existed about him.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot to it. So I wouldn't be surprised, when we look at a Frank Wheaton, there's probably there's good, there's bad, there's ugly, like everybody else.
It's just like everybody, right? Like, and I completely agree with what you're saying about that. Like, I went into it thinking McClellan was a dick, and I came out of it thinking like, okay, yeah, he's still a dick, but Halleck and Lincoln need to shoulder some more of the blame for what's going on. But having Howard as my favorite general, like when I announced that on Twitter, that just completely
that whole thing.
It was like I had said Stalin was my favorite person on earth. But
Stalin.
yeah, I did a tweet the other day, or actually yesterday, that was about Howard and this letter that Sherman wrote. And I got some really positive responses about it, saying people
Do you know what Joseph Stalin's real name was?
oh, no.
Joseph Jugashvili was his real name.
Really?
And he changed it to Stalin. You know what Stalin stands for in Russian? What it means? Man of Steel.
Wow.
That's a fake name. It's like Stonewall.
So that's not a bullshit thing like you told me the other night?
What are you talking about? Joseph, you could look at Joseph Jugashvili was Joseph Stalin's real name. Look it up. And he changed it to Stalin because it's Russian for Man of Steel.
Okay, Ryan. Sorry, go ahead.
He's basically made himself named after Superman.
Superman was partially invented by a Canadian.
I mean, partially.
There was a Canadian involved in the creation of Superman.
Jor-El was Canadian?
There was somebody who was in Canada. No, I'm talking about the authors.
What are you talking about?
Apparently Metropolis is based off Toronto.
I love the fact that you took like 30 seconds of rigor on busting your balls, like 30 seconds. You're like, no, wait, the author. No, I know that they're not real. I realize that Krypton's not a real planet, Mary. Okay. Don't do that with your face.
Ryan said, Elrond, Mr. Anderson saves British democracy unexpected. That was, am I getting that right? That's Hugo Weaving?
Hugo Weaving, yeah. He played on V for Vendetta. That was him.
Okay. He is one of my favorite movies is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
I never saw that one.
Okay, we have to watch that one.
It's better than that shit show Black Klansman we watched.
Oh, Black Klansman was, oh God. Yeah, we're watching Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I was actually thinking about that the other day randomly, that we need to do Priscilla, Queen of the Desert for movie night, but he's my favorite character in that. I love him.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving, he was the guy who played V. But that's a good movie though. That V for Vendetta is so good. Oh God.
Wow, I love Hugo Weaving. Oh, Ryan said, I'll do a Carney podcast, invented the core patch. The Carney cross leads to the...
Wait, isn't it Kearney?
Could you fucking not? And Allie said, yeah, Grant and Rosecrans had no love lost after Iuka. Then I probably butchered that. Then they butted heads, and then a favorite report at Rosecrans headquarters started talking shit about Grant and Ord and said Grant was drunk at Iuka, and I'm sure they didn't help the relationship that was already pretty garbage. The fact that they were able to chat civilly before Chattanooga is a shock to me. Yeah, I can't imagine how that meeting went when Grant was told, you got to fire this guy, and he's like, okay. Ryan said Carney would be a legend, but he died in a relatively minor battle when minor battles had stopped mattering. Allie, the more sources you have for stuff, the better. Yep. Ryan, my Romanian barber has a strongly positive views of Stalin. When he got out of his cutthroat razor to tidy my neckline, I stopped arguing and rather let down all of
Stalin's that's probably smart to do. God. Well, you're the triumvirate. You had Lenin, Stalin. Hey, speaking of this, do you know what today's date is? The historical anniversary of today's date?
Is it November?
Today is the 103rd anniversary of the Russian Revolution today.
Wow.
Of the rise of Bolshevism. Yeah. Speaking of, I'll have to tweet that later. But today's anniversary of that, in case you're curious.
Tsar Nicholas does not have much time.
No, he didn't make it. Anastasia didn't make it.
Nope. That story has fascinated me all my entire life.
You know what's a cool story is the story of Rasputin.
Oh, God.
That's a cool story.
You know what's on display at a museum, right?
Yeah, I noticed.
I'm sure everybody else does.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I'm not sure. He was not Irish.
Anyway, jeez, my God. Hi, Diane. She probably came into that at the wrong moment.
Yeah, big time. Come on, I'm kidding. God's sake.
I know you are.
I'm partially Irish. Partially.
Yep. But yeah, I think talking about some of these the more minor generals too. You know, each of us pick a general and talk about it for half an hour in an episode one night.
This is the very moment the train goes off the track right here. You know, But Gabe, hey, thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you. Oh, 5K. I'd love to do a 5K in the desert. You enjoy yourself.
Wow,
Stay safe with
nice.
that.
Thanks, Gabe.
Hey, Gabe, just don't trip over the beard. You'll be okay.
Yeah, Gabe's reading Confederates in the Attic right now too.
Confederates. There was some Twitter talk on that this
Yeah,
morning.
that's because
Mary.
Gabe's reading it, and that's why I
Yep.
retweeted
And
it.
Confederates in the Attic is absolute mandatory must reading for anybody who reads Civil War. Mandatory. You know,
Absolutely.
we'll have fun. But yeah, Stalin, Lenin, and Trotsky. Those are the big three. And but so today's the anniversary of the Russian Revolution.
Wow, that's another
Do you
good
know
movie. Is Enemy at the Gates.
I'd like to see when they hang that kid. I don't like that scene too much.
I don't either, but it's actually a really good movie.
Do you know that V.I. Lennon's not the same guy from the Beatles? Different guy,
Really?
different Lennon. Yeah.
Wow, you blew my mind again.
People think so. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to be gullible with you anymore.
A couple of years ago on my Facebook page, the date that John Lennon was his anniversary of his death, I wrote, today's the anniversary of John Lennon's death, and I put a picture of V.I. Lennon, right? And people are like, oh my God, that's what he looked like? I never knew. I have stupid friends.
Oh, people would do that on my Facebook page too.
It's so funny.
Leonard said, my great-grandfather fought at Iuka in the 38th Mississippi. Allie, everyone brings the most random fun fact on the general they picked. It can only go well and totally stay on track the entire time. Yeah, the most random fact about the general.
Well, but you know what though? Everybody, obviously you and I both like Howard, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I know people who like, obviously, Tim Smith, our buddy in Gettysburg, loves George Meade. Everyone, Matt Atkinson down in Gettysburg, he loves Lee. Everyone has their favorites, people who we're friends with or we know. But it's when you really get into them, you find those real intricate details. Mm-hmm. That makes it really, really cool.
Yep.
And like the whole thing with us with this whole podcast is the humanizing aspect of it all.
Yeah.
So we should, we could do, a special podcast on just a very random guy. Because you know what though, they're all important in different ways. Every single one of them.
Oh yeah, they all played a role. And thinking about random stuff, like Claiborne and his pet raccoon.
Yeah. Well, even guys like Rollins and guys, just random people. But you know what though? They all had specific important aspects to the whole big picture. And that's what's so fun about this is reading these really cool stories about guys beyond Sherman or beyond Grant or beyond Longstreet or beyond, all these guys, Pickett. It's just finding those obscure, cool, fun people to talk about. Yeah. And then you find out the good and the bad. Yeah. Like Nathaniel Banks from my hometown is a complete train wreck, okay? And I can understand that. But he has some positives too. Guys like G.K. Warren, same deal. Mm-hmm. Positives, but also a train wreck.
Oh, he was such a bastard.
Sheridan, positive and a train wreck, all of them. Right.
Yep.
It's just be able to study them and really understand because that's how you get a good 360 view of all this stuff. It's just understanding the whole thing.
Exactly. And that's why I said I picked Trimble for who I would drink with, even though I don't have any drinking stories about him, but he was part of Pickett's Charge, which it's now called the Pettigrew Pickett Trimble Charge, I think, which it needs to be.
It's always been called that, but it's called Pickett's Charge.
It's becoming, I think that's becoming more common in the Civil War to call it that. But I found out about Trimble when I visited Johnson's Island, and then I was like, okay, I want to know more about this guy, and I'm glad I picked him for one of the generals to drink with because he was a fucking character.
Well, Trimble, he had two brigades. He had Lane and Lancaster. He didn't really. I don't want to say they didn't do anything, but
over.
I know, but you know what though? I get it. Pickett should get most of the credit because his guys did most. I don't want to say most of the work, but Trimble, Pettigrew, Joe Davis, Marshall, Burkett Fry.
Armstead.
He had some.
No, he was Armstead.
Armstead was in Pickett. He was in Pickett. Okay.
Yeah.
You had Joe Davis, you had Marshall, you had Burkett Fry. Those are the guys you had on the Pettigrew side. You had Lane and Lancaster on. No, not Lane. On the Trimble side, and you had obviously Armistead and Kemper, those guys on the Pickett side. But for the most part, Pickett did most of it. He really did. Mm-hmm. But I
But I
get
think
it.
I think the other two need some credit as well, for it. I don't know if credit's the right word, but no, just Trimble finding out he was at Johnson's Island, which was where officers were held, and the story behind how Johnson's Island was picked is fascinating. But just Trimble's own story too, like what he knew about the railways was why he was put in prison, like why there was
You know
such a
what's
pull
you know what's
to
neat
put him in
about
prison.
Pickett's charge though? We're talking about Pickett's charge was Kemper, James Kemper, okay,
Yep.
Virginian.
Mm-hmm.
His brigade was halfway between the Union and Confederate line when they started.
Yep.
Like the movie, they're all in the woods. But Kemper was way out already, and they were lying in the sun all that time. And then when they started marching, and you've been there, they're marching towards the Kadori barn, and they got right to there, and they had to wheel left and expose their right flank. A couple of those guys from Philadelphia and Massachusetts, right on the west wall, to get aimed against because they went off track because Armistead had come in behind to kind of fill in the gap.
Yep.
But it's interesting how that whole thing played itself out because they stayed in Napoleonic style in how you wheel. It's like that story with with those South Carolinians at the Peach Orchard.
Yeah.
You know, when they had to wheel and expose their flank too. So it's amazing how they were able to stay and do that. It really was, because nowadays they run and save themselves. You know.
Yep. Got a few comments here. Go back here. Ryan, and the Civil War connection to Russia. Ivan Turchin and the Russian diplomatic overtures to Lincoln. As Britain and France were pro-Confederacy at a governmental level, autocratic Russia was pro-Lincoln, waiting for an opportunity for Crimea revenge if the Brits and French got involved in the Civil War. Hence the Russian fleet visit to US in 1863. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Jim says, now the election is over, I can get back to my regular reading schedule. I'm currently reading In the Waves, My Quest to Solve the Mystery of a Civil War Submarine by Rachel Lance. It's interesting. Jim, what is that book about? I'm going to guess the Hunley? Ryan said, the so-called minor players still do profound things. David Hunter, in his youth, saved Jeff Davis's life in the Army. Jeff would, during the war, sentence abolitionist Hunter to death for arming freed slaves. Amelia said to Jim, she does a guest spot on the Stuff I Didn't Learn in History Class podcast talking about this, and it's really great. Really interesting story. Another podcast to listen to. Allie said, Horace Porter is one of my favorite random people. He was with the Army of the Cumberland, and then Grant snatched him up for the Overland campaign, and he and Rollins didn't have the best relationship. I think Rollins was a bit annoyed at these new younger guys taking up Grant's time. Probably. I would agree with that. Ryan said, Hunter's open letter to Davis about finding out about his death sentence if he got captured is amazing. Yeah, Hunley. So Jim's book is about the Hunley.
The Hunley's really cool. So I was down in Charleston a couple of years ago, and on the anniversary of the Hunley, see what happened was where they launched it from Johnson's Island in South Carolina, okay, where these big fancy mansions are now. They do a reenactment where they go out there because the Hunley would go out there and they rose the Hunley, and the guy had a lantern.
Yeah.
And he would wave it, right? And then they submerged and they sailed away and they all died. But they reenact that every year. Where the guy waves.
Is it on Johnson's Island? Is it called Johnson's?
Right. It's on Johnson's Island. It's right out there. And so the way they did it was they would, so you can go out there and watch it, and they would just, you see the guy, it's all pitch black, it's early in the morning, but you see the lantern way in the distance, the guy waving it. It's just really, really cool. And so I went out there and watched that, and you could actually still see the Hunley, but they only show it certain times because it's submerged in water to protect it.
I actually almost when they started their conservation project on that, I actually have my career in another life before I was working in the library. I'm actually a museum conservator. So I'm like Abigail Chase in National Treasure.
She's a real life Abigail Chase.
Yeah, my area that I love to work in is paper conservation. And I still do a little bit of that on the side, but metals was my second that I really focused on in school. And I almost applied for that internship to help with the Hunley. I don't know why I didn't.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But I almost did, but I didn't. I was like, God, I don't have the qualifications. I just didn't submit my resume. But yeah, that's metals and paper are my area of focus in the field of conservation. And I'm hoping to get back into it at some point because I really, really enjoy it. It's a fun field to work in.
No, that's pretty cool. That's actually really legit cool that you do that. But yeah, so anyway, so I think it's pretty cool. So I think we're kind of winding down here a little bit. It's after 12, I think.
Yeah,
And I'm
we're almost
almost
at 2
out of
hours.
beer. Well, this is
Well,
pretty
you
good.
just need to go get more beer. I just opened my third.
Oh, you'll be fun today.
Yeah, so will you, I'm sure. Find
The
out
best
later.
part about Mary is God, she goes from wide awake to out like a light in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's the truth. I can't deny that.
that is true. It's kind of
Jesus.
hilarious. You know, it's true though. You're gonna die all you freaking want. I don't give a shit.
I'm not denying it. I'm agreeing with you. Jim says Lance sets out to prove what killed the crew of the Hunley. So far, she has ruled out drowning and asphyxiation, if I could talk. Amelia said the Hunley is a good story connected to the Confederate Secret Invention Corps that worked on torpedoes and other things. Yeah. So Amelia, did they work on those? Now Sherman referred to them as torpedoes. They would be landmines. Did they have anything to do with those on the March to the Sea, the ones that were buried where that one guy from on Sherman's March got basically his leg blown off and his horse was killed from that? Because that was something that really got to Sherman badly.
I don't know.
Because he, like, when that happened, and we'll talk about this in probably our second episode of the March to the Sea, like the guy was riding ahead and his horse stepped on one of these like torpedoes that was they were called torpedoes that were buried under the ground. They're basically landmines. Killed the horse and blew off the, like, from the ankle, the guy's part of his like leg and obviously his foot. And Sherman said, "This isn't war, it's murder."
That phrase was used a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and Sherman actually, in Vicksburg, there was, speaking of that phrase, he had stopped an attack in Vicksburg because of that very reason. And that goes back to Rosecrans again.
Yeah.
Where he basically was making up McClernand. It was McClernand. I'm sorry. Fucking sorry. It was McClernand.
McClernand.
There'll
be some memes and I'm sure they'll come from Leonard later.
Well, fuck him. I'm kidding, Leonard. I love you.
He came up with a bang barn.
I know, but McClernand, okay, where he basically wanted to attack Vicksburg and Sherman said, dude, it's murder. You're not going to do it. And pulled him back. It's also the phrase from Mudge of the 2nd Massachusetts at Gettysburg, it's Spangled Spring too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're about to do something alcohol related, I'm going to say, Mary, it's murder. Stop it. You're going to stop it.
I am. Yep. Unlike some other people, right? Not anybody on this thing.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going with that.
Mike said, looks like the shockwave from the explosion instantly killed the Hunley crew. I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. They got they basically died of percussion. That's how it sounds. When they found their bodies, they were all still at the mechanical stuff. They were all still holding on to the things. Like they had those hand crumps. They turned this thing like this.
Yeah. Wow. Allie said, we'll report back. The Hunley ones develop out of a gun works in Port Lavaca. It wouldn't surprise me if they did land ones too. Yeah. Thanks, Allie. That's awesome. Yeah. Or not Allie, Amelia. Yeah. She's into, what is it? Patents?
Amelia's a patent attorney.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would love to know if the torpedoes that were buried in the ground had something to do with that, like the inventions they were coming up with. I would suspect they did. And there was torpedoes like that when Lincoln was going to Richmond. He had to go in a boat, and they had to push these torpedoes out of the way.
Yeah.
That were in the river that they were rowing on, which is really interesting. No, that's cool. We always learn something from our listeners.
Oh, the people are awesome. They're really awesome. They really are.
Great. So, yeah, this is awesome. I love getting up on Saturday mornings and doing this.
Well, I love getting up, especially this morning. That was a good day for me, getting up this morning.
Off your 1 hour of sleep. Weeks is going to have a nap this afternoon.
No, I won't. I'll end up digging deep.
Yeah.
God knows what I'll be doing 11 o'clock at night. overtired, over alcoholed.
Allie, I'll take credit for Amelia's hard work. Amelia, what's funny is my sister's name is Allie, so it's like rolling home with my mom when you call me that. Totally cool. Oh, thank you.
Wait, hold on. Allie's sister's name was also Allie?
No, Amelia's sister is also Allie.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. She's cool with it though. It's good. It's funny.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, I think we should wind this down.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the P monster calls.
You can. You do realize you can just get up and go and come back, right? And I can hold down.
No, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know.
You can. You do realize that, right?
Well, consider you outdrink me 3 beers to 1. If you're going to stay there and you can deal with it, I can deal with it too. So let's talk about coming attractions. Okay. So next Monday, we are going to be on the Tattooed Historian live.
Yep,
so check that out at 8 p.m. So we'll be on our smiling faces. Probably all going to watch Mary, but that's okay. I'll be there too. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll do that with him for a while, and then we are going to be talking on. We're going to record Tuesday on the March to the Sea Part 1, which will be very, very cool.
Yep.
Save the date for our Civil War Breakfast Club roundtable, which is going to be on.
It's on Thanksgiving Eve, which is the 23rd.
The third Wednesday of every month.
Yep.
Okay. Prince Spaghetti Day is also going to be a Civil War Breakfast Club day. So we'll be doing that. So hopefully everybody joins and signs on, because that's always a lot of fun. We had a great time last time. So so basically we'll do that. So and then we'll have a good time. We'll do this again next Saturday. We'll talk a little bit about Sherman. So March to the Sea. I bet you O.O. Howard's name shows up. Probably.
Definitely, yeah. And if anybody's looking for some great books to read about Sherman or the March to the Sea, I would recommend specifically for the March to the Sea, Southern Storm by Noah Andre Trudeau. As well, if you just want a good Sherman biography to read, as well as a good summarization of the March to the Sea, Fierce Patriot by Robert L. O'Connell is excellent to read. And he is so funny. It is the best biography I've ever read about anybody, because he brings his sense of humor into it, which is awesome. And he tells Sherman in 3 different parts. So he talks about Sherman the man, and then Sherman the commander, and then Sherman kind of more his personal life. And it's all kept separate, which is, it really allows you to focus in on who he was. And then from there, you can go into deeper dives about Sherman. Got some comments here. Amelia, sorry. Actually, Jim said buy a plastic urinal.
Who said that?
Jim. He's hilarious.
Jim, what is this plastic urinal you speak of? You may have just changed my life. You're talking to a guy who tailgates at football games. If anybody can use a plastic urinal, who has 2 thumbs that can use a plastic urinal? This guy. So let me know the secret to that sorcery, because I can totally use that.
Amelia said, sorry, I missed reporting on dicks who are endearing earlier. Shelby Foote, LOL. But also Nathaniel Banks saved my high school and its slave quarters from destruction because it was run by the same order of nuns that ran his daughter's school, and he felt bad. And Ryan said, Meeks Connection. Grant's carriage, which he rides to his second inaugural, is from the Meeks Carriage Works. I don't know how I know that. Ryan, oh wait, it's Weeks, not Meeks. I'll go back to drinking, ignore me.
I'm getting pissed on now for
the guy that made Grant's carriage that he rode to his second inaugural, or his rides to his second inaugural, and is from Weeks Carriage Works.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
That's neat. And Jim, look them up on Amazon. Hilarious.
All right. Well, hey, listen, let's sign off. Okay. And get done with this. Okay. So today's a great day in American history.
It is.
I'm just going to say this right now. Anybody who's still signed on, and whether you agree or not, okay, I'm just going to tell you, it just is.
It
okay.
Is. The Canadian agrees. We're all so happy for you guys right now.
And I'll tell you right now, okay, whether it be the Revolutionary War of 1812, the American Civil War. This country has been 4th and 10 in football many times, and we always connect. We always deliver. And you know what? We did it again. We did it
8
again.
weeks,
So,
high five.
so God bless the USA. So
True Daddy and I are so happy for all of you right now.
it is. So it dodged a bullet again. We always do. We're not a perfect country. We never will be. We always seem to pull it together at the end. So cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.
Leonard
Celebrate
says
today.
Yep. Let's celebrate.
Let's celebrate today. You know what? Like I said before, we're not perfect. We never will be. Let's just celebrate today because you know what? We did it again.
Yep. We in Canada, and I can tell you, I'm looking forward to what True Daddy is going to say about this. It's going to be, I'm sure he's going to make an awesome statement, but let me say on behalf of Canada, and I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me on like politics, whatever. Oh, Jim says, I'm fantastically happy right now. Ryan said, make America Great Britain again. This is what you get for throwing the tea in the ocean. Jeez. Allie's celebrating. Roger, Donald Trump, you're fired. Best news of the day. Go Irish. But let me just say on behalf of Canada right now, congratulations. And we are looking forward to having a wonderful relationship with you once again. And
that'd be nice.
Border opening sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah.
This pandemic being over. And I think that Biden and Trudeau are going to have the same type of bromance that Obama and Trudeau had. So it's going to be recorded now. First official word from Canada is.
All right. It's official.
Cheers and congratulations. We still love you guys. We always will.
Excellent. So thanks for watching again. So check us out on John's thing on Monday. And I know this is like a relative who won't leave. This is going on and on and on, but you know what? We'll have fun anyway.
Yep.
So hey, great day. So
everybody.
Cheers. So have a great weekend. Enjoy your day and fly those flags. It's a great day in U.S. history. So let's enjoy the day. So
go America.
Let's
you made
go.
Me proud again.
All right. Peace out, everybody.
See you guys later.
Enjoy your weekend. It wasn't bad.
It was good.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad I'm surprised they announced that on a weekend because,
I'm just going to stop recording, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Hey, anybody watching? Bye.
Hey, bye, everybody. See you later.